guest of honor, and the Dean of Fisheries College and Research Institute, Thuthukudi, and the Dean, College of Fisheries, Nautical Engineering and Technology, and the dignified speakers from various institutes, HODs, professors, scientists, fisheries development officers, research associates, research scholars, PhD, MFSC, and BFSC students from diversified institutions representing 6 states to the national webinar on sea turtle conservation, strategies, and its implications in India. Once again, I cordially welcome each and everyone to this webinar. And now I welcome Dr. R. Santakumar sir, Dean in charge of Fisheries College and Research Institute, Thuthukudi, to deliver the presidential address.
Good morning to all of you, respected Vice Chancellor, University officers, all HODs, staff. It is my immense pleasure to propose presidential address. Today we are celebrating World Turtle Day all over the world. The main, the main cause behind this American tortoise rescue, the team, that is Susan and Marshall. They are the persons who are celebrating or who are starting this celebration of Marine Turtle Day during every year, that is May 23rd. And the main purpose of celebrating this Marine Turtle Day is to maintain the eco balance or ecosystem balance, because the marine turtles are cleaning the dead fish over the shore. So that's why it's cleaning the shore. And today, that is the theme of this Marine Turtle Day is celebrate. That is spelling SHELLEBRAT. That is ask everyone to love and save turtles. It's the theme of this year. And almost 61% of these turtles worldwide are threatened. Already sometimes it is extinct. So we have to conduct this sort of educational programs or awareness program to conserve the marine turtles. That is the purpose of this organizing this national webinar. And this is mainly conducting under the JRTF, that is Sea Turtle Conservation Strategies, and its digital solution for sea turtle conservation in South Tamil Nadu. That's the JTF title. Under this JTF only, this national webinar has been organized by the Department of Fisheries, Biology and Resource Management, headed by Dr. Jayakumar and his team. I congratulate all the organizers and the experts from MPDA and CMFRI and SIP, CMFRI and MPDA. So they are going to deliver the lectures in this national webinar. I once again congratulate all the participants also to register in this national webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now I invite Dr. G. Sukumar, sir, the Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu, Dr. J. Jayalalitha Fisheries University, Nagapattinam, to deliver the chief guest address. Okay.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
But I'm not getting the audio from there.
Yes, sir, you're audible to us.
சொல்றது கேட்கலையே. Dr. Sujat,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not hearing audio from the hall. Are you able to hear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. We are
Can you
getting the
hear
audio,
voice
sir.
and as well as video.
Okay, so can I start then?
Yes, sir. You can start. Sir, your bandwidth is, yeah, your bandwidth is very slow, I think.
My bandwidth is slow.
Yes, sir. Your video is muted, sir.
Video is also muted. Okay. How is it now? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my video is off.
Yes, sir.
A video is on, sir, but it's slightly.
Okay, okay.
Okay, anyway,
Is the welcome address over? Is the program commenced already?
Yes, sir.
What is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, you can start your chief guest address, sir.
Okay, I was not hearing anything at the moment. You know, I'm able to see the crowd, but that. Okay, good morning, everybody. I regret the technical issues that has cropped up before we started. And I'm really happy to be associated on this day on the National Seminar on Sea Turtle Conservation Strategies and its implications in India. So this is something that we look forward to because we know how important it is. And I'm really happy that the organizing team under the leadership of Dr. Santa Kumar has made it good that they have organized one national webinar on sea turtle conservation strategies and its implications in India. So as we see, its implications is rolled over onto the ecosystem as such. So we know that sea turtles are air-breathing reptiles, which are really charismatic and large, fascinating oviparous and flagship species for the diverse habitats they occupy. So as far as sea turtles are concerned, we have got a great importance. We all know the Kurma, the one of the 10 avatars or incarnations of Lord Vishnu. So even in mythology, we are quite associated with this Kurma or the turtles or tortoise, whatever it is, and which was churning the ocean of milk. So seeing that, we know that sea turtles have got a vital role to play in maintaining the health of the world's oceans. We know that this has been doing it for over 100 million years. The role of the turtles range from maintaining productive coral reef ecosystems to transporting essential nutrients from the oceans to the beaches and coastal dunes. Sea turtles are important members of the marine food web, and you know that an adult leatherback turtle of about 400 kg or 450 kg was estimated to eat around 330 kg of jellyfish per day in the waters of in our waters. See, this reduced number of sea turtles and other predators are believed to contribute to more frequent dooms or swarms of jellyfish occurring in our oceans. We have seen on and off these jellyfish swarms, which is causing a huge damages. High jellyfish population or the numbers are undesirable to many of our industries, including fishing, and it will deter the tourists to coastal areas, kill fish in sea aquaculture pens, choke fishing nets, and reduce fish populations. So we know that out of the 7 species, 5 turtle species, that is green turtle, oxbeak billed turtle, leather turtle, loggerhead turtle and olive ridley turtles are known to occur mainly along the coast of India. They are found predominantly in Gahirmata, Vitarkanika, and Rishikulya estuaries near river Nanda Devi of Odisha and Gulf of Mannar and Park Bay in the coast of Tamil Nadu. Both natural as well as anthropogenic activities threaten the survival of the turtles, like fishing and developmental activities. Now that we have got very strict rules, of course, how well it is regulated is a big question. So with a view to conserve turtles, all the 5 species of sea turtle are protected under the Wildlife Protection Act of India 1972. The Tamil Nadu Marine Fisheries Regulation Act 1983 prohibits all kinds of fishing activities in the radius of 5 nautical miles for a period of 4 months from January to April of every year, where sites are identified as potential nesting or breeding sites for turtles. However, the offshore challenges need to be addressed properly for effective management and conservation. We have got the rules, but how well it is regulated, as I said, has always been a problem. And unless otherwise there is a mass awareness of how to conserve these animals, we are not going to succeed in whatever rules we frame. So under these circumstances, realizing the need for conservation of sea turtles, PNJF has even sanctioned a project titled Digital Solutions for Sea Turtle Conservation in South Tamil Nadu, which is in the phase of operations along the South Tamil Nadu coast, along Ramanathapuram, Thuthukudi, Tirunelveli, and Kanyakumari districts. Further, this webinar on sea turtle conservation strategies, actually this commemorates with the World Turtle Day that falls today, that is 23rd May 2022, is hosted today by the Department of Fisheries Biology and Resource Management, Fisheries College and Research Institute, Thuthukudi. The World Turtle Day is an annual observance occurring every May 23rd, which began in 2000 and is sponsored by the American Tortoise Rescue. The day was created as a yearly observance to help people around the globe to protect turtles and tortoises and other disappearing habitats, as well as to encourage human action to help them survive and thrive in future. You also know that yesterday, the 22nd May, was observed as World Biodiversity Day. And this species has to be conserved for all the grace and patience it portrays and for the role in the ecosystem balance. Every organism needs to be conserved and it has to be protected. We know these sea turtles live for quite a long time. Maybe we can just see that it is a similar lifespan as that of human beings. Some can live for 50 to 100 years. And most marine turtles take decades to mature, between about 20 to 30 years, and remain reproductively active for another 10 to 15 years. So, considering all these things, we need to have this gracious species present and well conserved in our waters. So, I hope the organizers have done a good job of having attracted more than 100 participants from all over, not just from the colleges of our own university, but from all over, and a few professors are also there. And I should also congratulate and appreciate the efforts of our alumni and others, especially in Dr. R. Saravanan, Mr. Ashok Kumar, and Dr. V.R. Madhu, Principal Scientist from IAR CIFT Kochi, Dr. Jay Kumar, who are going to serve as the resource persons and talking various aspects of this turtle conservation, right from the resources to conservation management, responsible fishing operations, and the national and international initiatives taken for conservation of sea turtles. So I once again congratulate the organizing team comprising of the congratulate everybody, and also wish all the participants a good time in our association in conserving the sea turtles. Thank you. Over to the organizers.
Thank you, sir. And now, I invite Mr. R. Durai Raja, Technical Coordinator and Assistant Professor of Department of Fisheries Biology and Resource Management, FCRI TUT, to propose the vote of thanks.
So every program will have an end. So we arrived at this phase. respected the chief guest, Dr. G. Sukumar sir, Vice Chancellor, ENJFU, and Dean FCNRI, and other dignitaries, one and all present here. So the theme for the World Turtle Day, that is a celebrate. That means ask everyone to love and save turtles and tortoise. So let us continue to help protect turtles and tortoise and their disappearing habitats around the world. So indeed, of course, it date back to the time of dinosaurs over 200 million years ago. So it plays a vital role and a quite essential role in maintaining the health of plants and coral reefs of the marine ecosystem. So it has been sponsored by NGO, that is American Tortoise Rescue, in the year 1990. So with this small note, I would like to take this moment and on behalf of Department of Fisheries Biology and Resource Management and FCNRI and the entire fraternity of this institute to extend my sincere thanks to Vice Chancellor TNJFU for having readily accepted our invitation and consent to be the chief guest to celebrate this event. So I wish to thank Dean FCNRI for his continuous support and encouragement for this event to be great successful. I thank Dr. N.V. Sujat Passer Deeps for his all kind of help for this online event. I must extend my sincere thanks to head of the department, Dr. N. Jayakumar sir, and adjunct professor, Dr. V.K. Venkatraman sir of our department for conceiving this kind of program now and in the future, and always instrumental in planning and the execution of the program for well-being of the department. So I wish to thank speakers from various sources for readily accepted our invitation. Thiru Mr. Sudan, and organizing secretary, head of the department, assistant professors of all the departments of this Fisheries College Research Institute, and other people who directly and indirectly involved in this event to make this event grand successful. Last but not least, I take my most sincere thanks to the Almighty God, and I feel honored and privileged to thank one and all for the occasion to be great successful. Thank you, sir.
And now it's technical session. To start with, Dr. R. Saravanan sir, sea turtle resources and their conservation. And now he's a senior scientist in Marine Biodiversity Environment Management Division. And he has following some of the works which is involved in co-discovered a new diagenic trematode, rediscrimination of enigmatic jellyfish, marine fishery policy on minimum legal size, rediscovery of rare porcelain crab, sea urchin diversity, and worked on freshwater jellyfish of Kodaikanal Lake. And he has many awards and rewards, with the best success story award for the Green Rameshwaram project in the National Conference on Marine Debris, that is COMAT 2018. And he has published more than 26 papers and 10 books, 2 reports, and 25 technical articles and 2 books. And now the session is over to you, sir. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're audible.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor of Dr. J. Jayalalitha Fisheries University and the organizers for providing this opportunity to deliver a lecture on sea turtles. And I am very happy to be associated with this kind of program then and there whenever it is organized. This webinar will be very in a befitting manner organized, as yesterday was the International Biodiversity Day. And the theme of the International Biodiversity Day is building a shared future for all life. So that is the theme of the day. So definitely the next day we are thinking about one another life form, that is turtle. And I would like to go to my presentation of sea turtle. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So today is the World Turtle Day, organized by an NGO in USA. So this has been going on for a long time. And the sea turtle resources and their conservation is my topic for today's presentation. And as you know, sea turtles are ancient creatures, and for about 150 million years history they have on Earth. Very sturdy and robust animal. Turtle is the term used for a group of reptiles of the order Testudinata. And naturally people would have confusion where to use the name turtle, terrapin and tortoise. So a little bit clarification on that. The word turtle is generally used to denote semi-aquatic and marine species. So we have to call the marine species only turtle. The terrapin to the hard-shelled freshwater species which are edible that are called terrapin, and tortoise are strictly terrestrial species. So these are the classification which we have to properly use when we address turtle, tortoise and terrapin. And just an information about the population of the sea turtle. The recent estimate shows that there are nearly 6.5 million sea turtles left in the wild, but the species composition is different. So this is recent data of the estimation of turtle population in the wild. And as you know, there are 7 species of sea turtles found in the world warm oceans, and 5 are found in the Indian seas. The family Chelonidae contains 4 species: Chelonia midas green turtle, Rhythmochelys imbricata hawksbill turtle, Carita carita loggerhead turtle, and Lepidochelys olivaceae olive ridley turtle. And apart from this, family Dermachelidae contains a particular species called a leatherback turtle, Dermochelys coryciae. Among these 5 species, 4 species of turtles nest along the Indian coast, mainland coast. Just when we look at the importance of turtle, why we have to protect turtle? So you may know that the ecological concepts of umbrella species and their top predator, if it is healthy in an ecosystem, the entire ecosystem will be in good condition. So that's why we try to protect the top predatory species, apex predator. So here, turtle is also an apex predator in the marine ecosystem. So turtles help control their prey. Just in the introductory remark, Dr. Vice Chancellor mentioned about how much a turtle eats jellyfish. So nowadays, along the Indian coast, jellyfish menace is increasing. So this particular organism, turtle, keeps or create a check on the jellyfish population by eating jellyfish. And similarly, hawksbill turtle eats sponges. If you happen to dive in the coral reef area, there are a number of encrusting sponges which cover smoother the coral reefs because of their higher growth rate. As you know, the space is premium, the competing organism will try to outgrow the other in the coral reef environment. So sponges which are fast growing, it will simply cover the coral reefs. So in such occasions, in such conditions, hawksbill turtle help reef by eating sponges that compete with them for space. In turtle nestling beaches, the unhatched eggs serve as a nutrient for the coastal vegetation. Hatchlings are an important source of food for many animals, birds, fish, mammals. So hatchlings, though they may come in a large numbers, not all are surviving. So vast majority of these hatchlings are eaten away by these predators. There are important coastal economics and native communities depends on the turtles, especially in the recreational diving, tourism related opportunities. Turtle provide income to the indigenous communities so that their cultures is preserved. There are emotional and psychological benefit also when you are looking at a turtle. So you will have such benefits also. And the green turtle, which grazes on the seagrass, checks its population, and overgrowth of seagrass is also controlled. So these are all some of the benefits of sea turtles. These are all the ecological services collectively we derive from the sea turtles. So before going to further, here I would like to share some of the important information. In the introductory remark, our Vice Chancellor mentioned our association with the sea turtle dates back to mythological days. The modern science of turtle started only in 15th century. But when we look at the literature, which is called Sangam literature, which was created around 4th century, the Ahananuru poem 160. I just read, others also can read the explanation which is in Tamil below. ஒடுங்கியீர் ஓதி நினைக்குமற்றோ நடுங்கின்று அழுத்து எண்ணிறை இல் நெஞ்சம் அடும்பு கொடி சிதைய வாங்கி கொடுங்களி குப்பை வெண்மணர் பக்கம் சேர்த்தி நிறைசூழ் ஆமை மறைத்து ஈன்ற புதைத்த கோட்டுவட்டு உருவின் புலவுநாறு மூட்டை பார்ப்பீடன் ஆகும் அளவை பகுவாய் கணவன் ஓம்பும் காணலம் சேர்ப்பன். இந்த பாடல் அகநானூறு 160 வரும் ஒரு பாடல். இயற்றியவர் நாப்பசலையார் என்ற சங்ககால புலவர். பெரும்பாலும் you may know that அகநானூறு talks most about இல்லறம். To compare such a theme, the Napasalayar used the turtle laying process. So this shows that though modern science started only in 15th century, this particular information on turtle egg laying style and how it creates the print, and it covers with Adumbu Kodi. It is nothing but, which you can see in most part of the coastal area, Ipomia pescapre. This is the particular creeper which turtle uses to cover its nest. This particular information has been mentioned in a Sangam literature, which was created around 4th century in Ahananuru 160th poem states about this particular Adumbu Kodi use. Only in 1910, scientific articles have come published about the use of this particular Ipomia pescapre in turtle laying activities. So modern science discovers this activity only in 1900s, whereas Tamil Sangam literatures, which contains this particular information of turtle laying and covers, and even now the fishermen of Mandapam, Dhanushkodi, Pamban area continue to use this word. It is now called Adapangodi. So this is a particular indigenous traditional information which we needed to know, because after 1400-600 years, the usage of this particular word is still it is there, and this clearly explains us the vast heritage of science. So we call them poets, but naturally they should be called scientists. They have observed and compared with another theme here. So this particular information I thought of sharing with you, so to show how much scientific informations are found in our traditional Sangam literature. So with this, I would continue. This particular information was brought by Sanjeev Raja in 1958, published from the Madras Museum Journal. So now I would go to the different species of turtles. Chelonia mydas, which is called green turtle, Paramai in Tamil, which is in endangered status. As you know, IUCN has categorized the various species red data book. In that, it comes under endangered category. It grows to the maximum size of 90 to 120 centimeter, weighs around 250 kg. The green turtle, the name derives from the fat deposition which is found below the carapace, which is in green in color. It mostly nests in Gujarat, Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands. And they are strictly herbivorous when they are adult, but young are omnivorous. And here in green turtle, trade was there up to 1970, before the formation of the Wildlife Protection Act. Turtle was traded. Even there are number of research paper published by Semaphore on turtle trade. Even the people, old staff of Semaphore also fondly recollect how turtles were taken through rail to Chennai and Colombo by boat mail for trade. So around 1,000 turtles from Park Bay and Chilakarai, Gulf of Mannar area used to be traded. So comes around 3,000 to 5,000 turtles, green turtles were traded during those days annually. So that much was there. And later, because of the Wildlife Protection Act, the trade has gone without any notice. The next species is called hawksbill turtle, Rhythmocheles imbricata, which grows around 80 to 100 centimeter carapace length and 150 kilogram size. That is kept in critically endangered. The reason is that the carapace is used to make souvenirs, comb, and many other ornaments. So because for that purpose, in souvenir industry, this turtle was used, so exploited very much. And they are a reef-associated organism. And as I already told that it's mostly on sponges. In India, hawksbill nest along Andaman and Nicobar Island and Lakshadweep Island. And it is not much abundant as when compared to other species. The flesh is also not much edible and sometimes reported poisonous. The third species is Carita carita, loggerhead turtle, Perinthalai ammai. The name itself explains. It is kept in the vulnerable category. It grows around 80 to 100 centimeter carapace length and 200 kg weight. This is one of the rarest of Indian sea turtles found only in Gulf of Mannar area in the south in Indian waters. Most frequently, it is found nesting in Sri Lankan area, a carnivorous species, feeding on crabs and fish and other benthic animals. And the most abundant species on Indian coast is this Panguni ammai, Citra ammai, olive ridley turtle, Leptocheles odoviceae. And along the Orissa coast annual Arivada, the meaning arrival, mass nesting takes place. So only this olive ridley and temperately are having this habit of mass nesting even. And around 4 to 6 lakh species, numbers, 6 lakh numbers used to come to the Gahirmada coast in Orissa for laying eggs. This is one of the largest even, and this is one of the smallest among all species of five turtles. Grows around 60 to 70 centimeter carapace and 50 kilograms weight. And the largest among all turtles, five turtle, is this leatherback turtle, Doni ammai or Yeluvari ammai. There will be 7 ridges on the carapace. There won't be any hard carapace. It will be leathery. That's why it is called a leatherback turtle, Dermacheles coryciae. And this is the deepest diving turtle, known to dive around 1,200 meter depth. And indiscriminate poaching up to 70s caused the disappearance of this species in the mainland coast waters, mostly for its eggs, because the meat is here also poisonous. So meat is not edible. So for the eggs, this was exterminated. So kept in vulnerable category. So among these 5 sea turtle species, here I have shown the distribution map along the east and west coast and the island territories. The black circle indicates olive ridley along the Indian coast. The square indicates the green turtle. Triangle indicates leatherback, and the hexagon indicates hawksbill turtle. On the right hand side here, you see the migration pattern of the olive ridley turtle. Mostly they are along the east coast up to Sri Lanka, they migrate. In 2 incidences when turtles were tagged in Orissa, they were found nearly after 2 years along Kanyakumari coast. They were recaptured. This clearly indicates the olive ridley turtle found in the Orissa coast migrate in these waters, Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Mannar area. So this is their migratory route. And conservation and management. As far as conservation management is concerned, through an amendment in 1977 to the Wildlife Protection Act, turtle has been given the Schedule 1 highest protection status. Killing or destroying their eggs is a criminal offence, can be fined up to 24,000 rupees or 7 years of imprisonment. In 1998, Government of India constituted an expert scientific panel to suggest recommendation for turtle management and conservation, and that has submitted in 2000 its recommendation. Based on the recommendation, the following guidelines have been given. The entire coast of Odisha during period November to April, and coast of Midnapur district in West Bengal during December and March, and the coast of along the Andhra coast during November and April, and in Tamil Nadu coast between December to April, Nagapattinam, Tuticorin, Ramanathapuram and Chennai, and along the coast of Puducherry, that is between December to April, and the coast of Kollam and Trivandrum district in Kerala during December to March. So the duration and the important months which we have to take care for turtle has been outlined by this expert scientific panel. Based on that, each state has formulated its management measures. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, Government of Tamil Nadu identified over 100 potential olive ridley nesting sites and prohibit fishing using any mechanized or motorized crafts within 5 nautical miles of these sites for 4 months between January to April through GO in 2016. So this is already in force, and no mechanized vessel or motorized vessels is allowed within the 5 nautical mile area of the potential turtle nesting sites. Here you are looking at a Google map where it shows this is Park Bay on the north, Gulf of Mannar in the south. So here you see this particular dots indicates the turtle nesting areas along the Dhanushkodi coast in Gulf of Mannar area. So only along the Gulf of Mannar coast, Dhanushkodi area, turtle nesting is dominant. On the northern side, Park Bay coast, it is not much. So here turtle hatchery operation now it is completely taken over this activity by the forest department after the research demonstration successfully done by Semafari and many other NGOs. Now they are conducting this as a regular activity. So they locate the nest whenever during this month, December to April months. They first locate the nest and mark the GPS recording, and their depth and other measurements are taken, and they are collected, and then they are taken to the turtle hatcheries, translocating to the turtle hatchery where they are properly tagged, and about 50 to 55 days they are incubated. And during summer, since this period is a summer period, they put gunny bag, wet gunny bag to maintain the temperature. As you know, turtles do not have sex chromosome X or Y, so their sex is determined by the temperature of the hatching. So if higher temperature means it will become female. If lower temperature means it will become male. So they maintain proper temperature, and once after 50-55 days, the turtle hatchlings are released back. As far as Mandapam, Tuticorin and Keelakarai range is concerned, in 2020 and 21, about 176 nesting sites around Mandapam coast. 19,667 eggs were collected with 97% hatching efficiency, and Tuticorin about 19 nesting sites, 1,960, and from Keelakarai coast 10 nesting sites, 1,054 eggs. So survival is about 90% in Mandapam and Tuticorin, and Keelakarai about 80%, and the collection process of eggs and releasing is the highest along the Mandapam range when compared to Tuticorin and Keelakarai. This particular statistics which I have collected from the Mandapam range of Forest Department. And here if you look at the year-wise turtle egg collection in Gulf of Mannar Marine National Park area, 2017 and 18, 26,017 eggs were collected and only with 67% hatching rate. From 2018 to 19, 15,439 and with 92.5% hatching efficiency, and 19, 26,000, and again 2020 and 21, 22,000, 96% percentage of hatching. So this shows that how this particular activity is being carried out by the Forest Department annually during the turtle nesting season, and this particular detail from the Mandapam range of Gulf of Mannar. Then now we will look into the problem of incidental catch of turtles and the problem faced by turtle through fishing and other activities. You know that abundant, lost, or otherwise discarded fishing gear (ALDFG) is an important concern. And here you are looking at a turtle which was trapped by the net. It was simply discarded. I have personally photographed this along the Nochiruni coast of Park Bay. And similar to this kind of net entanglement and death, we record all along the coast of the east and west coast. So number of sightings will take place. So much awareness needed along this coast about this abundant and lost or otherwise discarded fishing gears. So this really creates a problem for these reptiles. And once if it is entangled, it is very difficult to escape from this kind of entanglement. Here you are looking at the turtle carcass, a dead turtle carcass. Sometimes due to reproductive stress, they may die. Sometimes even poaching also, illegal poaching also, sometimes this can happen. So this you can find along the nesting site and wherever turtle nest like this. And what kind of activities turtle rescue and rehabilitation activities we are doing means, we mostly whenever we go and we sensitize the fisherman to release it back. So here some of our scientists are involved in the release of turtles which was entangled in the fishing operation. Here you are looking at, this is here nearly five turtles are entangled in the sourcing operation. I was personally there to release them into the water, and whenever we go, we sensitize the fishers to release it back. On one particular occasions, I myself have seen 13 turtles were entrapped in sourcing. So during this particular month, as I told you, only along the Gulf of Mannar coast, this turtle nest along the Dhanushkodi area, that is the area where fishermen operate sourcing. So the sourcing process and as well as the turtle nestling time mostly coincides along the Dhanushkodi area. So naturally they are caught, but through continuous awareness creation and fishermen release it back whenever they get the turtle trapped in their sourcing net, they release it back. Here one of my technical staff is releasing back. Here also whenever forest department brings injured turtle and we rehabilitate in our facility and then release it back again. Here you see there is a turtle with flipperless turtle. So due to the injury and sometimes the boats strike, they lose their flippers, so which we try to maintain and we try to rescue, rehabilitate them and release it. And one another problem also turtle face in the wild, that is called the turtle debilitation. Due to the boat strike or some other gas production in their body, they will lose their buoyancy and they can't dive. They remain floating on the surface of the water. Such debilitated turtle also we are trying to rescue and rehabilitate in our facility whenever fishermen are forced to bring to our facility. And what kind of management intervention is required as far as turtle conservation and management is concerned means, as far as turtle is concerned, it is a Schedule 1 species and any display or maintenance rearing requires the permission of the Central Zoo Authority. That is the authority which provides license for keeping Schedule 1 organisms. As far as tortoise and terrapin, other organism is concerned, they have clear-cut guidelines and blueprint of that rearing facility. Whereas for sea turtle, they do not have. So such measures need to be developed. So a design and development of sea turtle rehabilitation facility, that is one of an important work which has to be done so that the Central Zoo Authority can give permission to maintain sea turtles to rehabilitate them. And another important intervention what I would like to suggest based on my experience. So forest department after 50-55 days, the turtle young ones are hatched, the baby turtles are immediately ranched in the sea. Actually, what happens now, a turtle nest in a particular breeding season 4 to 5 times, and around 600 to 800 eggs they may release. So in spite of the high number of turtle eggs, only one would survive to adulthood. All the remaining would be predated by other organisms. So now here also through interventions, what we are doing, we are again releasing them, the same baby turtles into the wild. So it is at the mercy of the nature, the survival depends. So this directly will, I hope that may not improve the survival of turtle in the wild. So what I feel that through this turtle rehabilitation facility, some months, unless or otherwise they are competent to self-defend from the predators, that can be maintained, and that number of months or years which should be maintained has to be standardized. Why I am telling this particular intervention, Semafari way back in 70s itself reared olive ridley hatchlings for 4 years, and the basic details, scientific details are available with Semafari. So that can be put into use. So in turtle rehabilitation facilities, turtles can be reared unless otherwise they become competent in the nature, then they can be ranged. So such programs can be undertaken so that the survival rate in the wild would substantially increase. And another important way to manage a turtle population is to incentive fishermen when they release sea turtles back. Here, an NGO operated radio station, Kadalosai in Pamban, they do this voluntarily. They offer this kind of incentives when they bring in videos of sea turtle release fishermen. They inquire, and when they are satisfied with the genuineness of it, they provide incentives. Such programs should be carried out by the government and other organizations also, so that the protection status will improve. The high congregation of green turtles, for example, in the Lakshadweep area, seagrass habitat loss due to green turtle has been reported. Already I have, during my introduction, I told turtles create a balance of seagrass ecosystem by maintaining its population. But when the population of turtles becomes more, and it again creates a problem for seagrass. Such problem has been reported in Lakshadweep area. So when more sea turtles are there, and the loss of seagrass beds and habitats has been reported. And some studies report that a sea turtle feeds 1.5 kg of seafood per day. And every year, more than 6 lakh olive ridleys are nesting along the eastern coast of India. That study estimates that if this turtle feeds, it would feed around 600 tons of seafood per day. So this is another dimension when we go for species-wise protection. So if only turtles are protected, if their numbers are more, and what would happen to the food chain? So this is a rough estimate given by work of Dr. Jayabhaskaran, who is the now Director General of FSI, and he has given indicated this particular thing. And one more important thing is that translocation of sea turtle eggs and hatchlings from thickly healthy populated areas to where they are disappeared. So such translocation activity also one of the management measures which can be tried. For example, in Lakshadweep, it is nowadays it is becoming a menace. So from there, where this can be translocated. So such interventions is required. So we also create a lot of awareness activity. So through this kind of postcards among the school students during the 150 years of celebrating the Mahatma Sea Turtle Protection Conservation Initiatives are undertaken. And as well as we have created Kadal Aamaigal Kuritha Vizhuppunarvu Edi, a coloring book around 25 pages, which we have distributed and colored, collected and selected the best. So to create awareness. And since nowadays it is an IT area, everything depends on app. So I would like to give this particular information for the people who are more interested on the use of apps. So there are a number of applications available on Sea Turtle and nesting and in-water sensors. There are some apps like Raster, Siren Turtle, Nest Tracker, Clutch Keeper, and Iris. These are some of the apps which you can try to collect data and record it in the field itself. And you can promote even citizen science initiatives through apps like Turtles Uniting Researchers and Tourists, eTurtles, CLE, Zero Carry, iNaturalist, Health Mapper, Ghost Gear Reporter, and one more custom platform called Fulcrum, Open Data Kit Collect. These are some of the sea turtle apps. And even we can create indigenous vernacular apps also, so that more citizens are involved in this endeavor, and it will get enough attention and protection through this kind of initiatives. And I take this opportunity to thank everyone for the passion hearing of my presentation, and here one of my associate releasing olive ridley turtle back into the sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightened talk. And now it is open for discussion. Participants, if you have any queries, you can ask.
Only I am looking at the leaving message.
Saravanan, am I audible to you? This is
Yeah,
Jay Kumar.
yeah.
Saravanan, as our government has been undertaking a lot of programs and implementing several measures for the conservation and management of turtle for the last several years. Is there any study on the current status of turtle in India? So just I want to know, is there any impact of these programs on the stock status of these turtles in our country?
Actually, in a recent paper, 2020 paper only, comprehensively assessed the wild population of sea turtle around the world oceans at about 6.5 million. But whereas in olive ridley itself, about 6 lakh olive ridleys are coming for egg laying along the Orissa coast. So globally, only estimates are there based on some secondary approaches. Stock status as it is has not been undertaken because it is a bit difficult since they are oceanodramas, highly migratory, and assessing their population is very difficult. In Gahirmada coast along the Orissa, since they are coming for annual Aribada, so at least for olive ridley we could tentatively estimate its population, but for other species it is difficult. So far such attempts has not been carried out, and it is important now. If at all we would want to manage their population, we need to arrive at a figure, and consensus figure should be arrived so that their population can be managed better. And secondly, and as far as conservation management is concerned, protecting a flagship species or umbrella species or keystone species, how it's going to help the other species in the food chain, that has to be studied. And by protecting only turtle, so how other species are getting protected, that has to be substantiated, because now we cannot go on protecting species wise one after another, protecting it. So how this particular species protection helps the vibrant ecosystem activities and the food chain is balanced, that has to be substantiated. So here I just presented in Lakshadweep, it is considered as a menace. So to more turtle population, so menace to their activities, livelihood activities, and even to the ecosystem ecological services. So we have to arrive at a balance by keep on promoting species-wise protection also. So these are some of the important way forward areas where we have to work to find out the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Saravanan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And now, our next distinguished speaker is Dr. N. Jayakumar, sir, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Fishery Biology and Resource Management, Fisheries College and Research Institute, Thoothukudi. He have an experience of 17 years teaching, research, extension activities, and he has published many research papers, technical notes, short communications, book chapters, books, etc. And he is with us to deliver a talk on international and national initiatives taken for the conservation of sea turtles. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Sudan. Sudan. Yes. Good morning, one and all. I hope I am audible to everyone. Yes, good morning to one and all. I'm here to make a presentation on international and national initiatives taken for the conservation and management of sea turtles. So, our first speaker, Dr. Saravanan, Senior Scientist of CM4I, he has touched a lot on national initiatives. So, what are the programs or projects that are being undertaken in our country to conserve sea turtles? So, I shall restrict my presentations mostly on international initiatives. So, just to make you all aware of what is going on with regard to conservation and management of sea turtles. So, what we can learn from them and what should be done in our country to improve the stock status of sea turtles in our country. Yes. Slide. Yes. See, you all know that turtles are marine air-breathing reptiles and they inhabit tropical and subtropical waters throughout the world. So, if you take the number of species, this is one of the few groups that has very few number of species. Here, in this case, sea turtles, there are only 7 species all over the world. Almost all these 7 species are endangered. So they need to be protected. So there are 7 species. Out of these 7 species, 5 are found in our country. All these 5 species are being protected by Indian Wildlife Protection Act in our country. Yes. So Saravanan sir already touched on this.
Jaykumar, 1 second. You please project it.
Implicator.
Jaykumar, you please project your screen. Put it on project mode, projection mode.
Slideshow, please.
Yes, hawksbill turtle. So, Keratochelis imbricata. This is endangered worldwide, and this particular species is found in Caribbean Sea, Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. And it inhabits estuaries, lagoons, and coastal reefs. And the threats that are being faced by this particular species, mainly, they are mainly harvested for their beautiful shell. Then, green turtle, this is called Chelonia midas. This is also endangered worldwide, and this is also found in all these oceans except these polar regions. So they also inhabit coastlines, bays, and seagrass beds. So these turtles are mainly harvested or poached for food. That means for their meat, eggs, and they are caught accidentally or deliberately in shrimp trawls. Then loggerhead turtle, this is called Carata carata. This is also a threatened species. This is found in both temperate and tropical waters around the world. And the threats faced by this particular turtle is coastal development, habitat destruction, and shrimp trawl nets. Leatherback turtle, that is Dermochelis horiaceae. This is also endangered worldwide, and this is most widely distributed turtle around the world. That is from Alaska to southern tip of Africa. It is found almost in all the countries, all the coastal areas. And its habitats include pelagic open ocean, and they are able to migrate thousands of miles. And longline fishery, pollution, and poaching, these are the main threats to this particular turtle species. And Kemp's Ridley, this is not found in our country. This is found in the Gulf of Mexico. This is also critically endangered. So threats include they are collected for meat and eggs, and again shrimp trawls. Olive ridley turtle, that is Lepidochelis olivacea. This is also endangered all over the world, and they mainly inhabit tropical waters, and they are found in coastal bays, estuaries, and so they forage offshore. Threats includes they are harvested for their meat and eggs, so they are caught by commercial fishing accidentally, and their habitats are being destroyed due to by various developmental activities. Yes, flatback turtle, it is called Netata depressus. This is also critically endangered. This is its distribution is mainly restricted to northern Australia. This is not found in our country. Out of these 7, only 5 species are found in our country. Yes. So these are the 5 species of turtles that are found in our country. And so this is with respect to identification. And okay. And so here, so we are going to deal with a conservation. Why these species, these turtle species are vulnerable to exploitations? So because of its behavior, so they undergo migration. They undertake migration for a long distance, and very often they need to come to the shore for nesting. So they get exposed to outside environment, so they become vulnerable to exploitation easily. Yes, that is migration, that is navigation. So navigation means finding the way from one location to another. So we also migrate from one place to another place. We move from one place to another place. What are the ways that we use to navigate or to move? Yes, compass, stars. So we look at the position of moon and sun. We make use of maps, landmarks. Likewise, even these turtles, they use some mechanism to navigate or to migrate. Yes, mainly because of sight. Yes, they have powerful eyes. They make use of that, and so they can move. Position of the moons. So based on the position of the moons, so they migrate, and they are able to sense the wave direction also, And it is said that they have an internal compass. With the help of that, so they know in which directions they need to move. So how do you think these baby turtles navigate from the nest to the ocean? So actually, just after hatching, they move away from shellutes at the top of the beach. Then they orient themselves toward the brightest light. This is the, now you see, so they orient, just after hatching, they have to move, they have the behavior of moving towards the light. Now what happens in the beach? So because of the coastal area development, industrial development, tourism development, and so all these coastal areas are highly illuminated. So artificial lighting takes place. This artificial lighting only becomes a major cause for the reduction in the stock of this turtle species. They can sense the direction of waves when they are in the water. So what are the reasons a turtle might have to navigate in the oceans? How far do you think turtles can migrate? They can migrate even up to 1,000 kilometers. Some species are able to migrate even up to 2,000 kilometers. Yes. Why they migrate? So they migrate to find food for mating, and they reach the beaches to make nest. Yes. Some turtles, they can migrate over 2,600 kilometers, but most of them will only travel 1,000 kilometers. Then reproduction, this mating takes place in the water, and these turtles, they lay eggs in nest on the beach, usually at night. They can lay up to several hundred in one nest. Many turtles can create several nests over a few weeks during the reproductive season. In one particular seasons, they can make several nests. So after laying all their eggs, the females return to the ocean. That incubation period, that is 50 to 60 days. So after a period of 50 to 60 days, the baby turtles will emerge and travel to the ocean and must defend themselves. Yes. So I say that all these species become endangered. So what does endangered mean? Yes. So in the beginning, even in 1963 itself, USA started thinking about the conservation of turtles. So they realized the importance of conserving turtles in 1963 itself. Then in 1973 only, they enacted one act, Endangered Species Act, to protect plants or animals that are listed by the federal government as endangered or threatened. So these acts, this is one of the main acts. This provides a means to conserve the ecosystem upon which endangered and threatened species depend, thus preventing extinction. Yes. So, CITES, this Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, this particular act, this agreement, it regulates and prohibits international trade of plant and animal species that are threatened or endangered. So we cannot transport, sell, or trade any endangered species or their products, including shells, meat, or eggs. Yes. So this IUCN has given several criteria. So based on which only animals and plants are rated like a critically endangered, or threatened. Yes. So critically endangered means the organisms that face an extremely high risk of extinction from the wild in the immediate future. Endangered means an animal or plant species in danger of extinction throughout or all or a significant portion of its range. Threatened species, it means an animal or plant species likely to become endangered within the foreseeable future throughout all or a significant portion of its range. Yes. Now, why do we need to protect the turtles? What is the importance of turtles? So we say that they are keystone species, what they contribute to the ecosystems. You see, look at this. So look at the food web. These turtles are valuable to the environment because they form a part of the food web, and So they become food for other animals, higher predators. At the same time, so they also prey upon some of the species at the lower level. So they check the population of the lower level animals. That means prey species. This is necessary to balance the ecosystems. Yes, turtles eat sponges and seagrass, crabs, shrimp, and fish. So they check the population of all these groups, and they help to keep population of their food sources in balance. Meanwhile, so these turtles they become prey to other predators like sharks. Then, turtles are a primary transporter of marine nutrients to terrestrial habitats. You see, most of the turtle species, they visit the beach for nestings. So, when they come to the beach for nesting, what happens? Indirectly, they add nutrients to the terrestrial habitats. And these nets are full of nutrients and energy for the terrestrial ecosystem. How? See, unhatched eggs, dead hatchlings, and decaying materials, they provide nutrient and energy for plants and dune vegetation, bacteria, insects, fungi, invertebrates, birds, crabs, and fish. So they help in movement of nutrients from the ocean environment to the beach, terrestrial environment. So for the nutrient recycling, they play major role. Yes. So what are the threats that are being faced by these sea turtles? Yes, and both natural and anthropogenic. Yes, what are the natural threats? So predation of adults and hatchlings, weather that includes hurricanes and erosion, climate change, they all affect these turtles. And predation of adults by larger animals like a killer whale, sharks, jaguars, feral dogs, and humans. Predation of hatchlings includes mongoose, rats, birds, ants, wild boars, feral cats, dogs, crabs, fish, plants, and humans. Yes. So for these natural threats, when they come to the shore, they get exposed to all these birds. So birds and the feral animals like dogs, fox, mongoose. Look at this picture. It shows how they fall prey to crabs, birds. And you see, so this is a turtle shell of a turtle, which was attacked by shark. Sharks, they are a natural predator of sea turtles. And you see, this picture shows the beach erosion. So what happens? So because of this hurricanes or storm surge, when the beach sand is getting eroded, and these eggs that are being incubated are exposed to the outside environment. Yes, and like other animals and plants, turtles also suffer from some diseases. This is one of the most common disease, fibropapillomas, tumors. See, look at this turtle. So all over the body, they've got tumors. And so ocular tumors. So their eyes are affected by this kind of tumors. Then anthropogenic threats. So what are the threats that are made by human beings? That includes harvesting and poaching of eggs and adults, international trade and commerce of turtle products, commercial fishing and shrimping, urbanization, development, coastal monitoring and habitat destruction, artificial lighting, pollution, and debris. See? So look at this. All these pictures show the coastal environment. So nowadays, apartments, multi-story buildings, resorts, industries, so they all are established only on the shores, on the beach. So they affect the nesting grounds of these turtles. Then you see beach erosion, and you see the first picture that shows the impression made by the vehicles. So a track of vehicles. And then nets. So nets like gill nets, long lines, even trawl nets. So in these nets, turtles get entangled and they are not able to get rid of these turtles, and slowly they die. Then choking on floatable debris. Just look at this picture. The turtles are getting endangered in the, getting entangled in the nets. Once they get entangled and they are not able to come out of the net, and they die. See? Fishing hooks on lines. They create serious injuries and even they kill turtles. So that's why it's almost all the agencies involved in the conservation and management of turtles, they advise this step, and this will be dealt in detail by the next scientist. Turtle explorer device. This is a device we all advise to help turtle escape from the trawl nets. Yes. Okay. Yes. Then this artificial lighting, already I told you, this artificial lighting, so on the beach areas, they disorient hatchlings. And so what happens due to these lights, hatchlings, instead of moving towards the oceans, they move towards the land and they try to cross even the roads. So when they cross the roads and they get hit by the vehicles, and even they are hit by boats, and they are poached for jewelry and meat. And you see the picture of this. So the whole beach is illuminated. So this can disorient the hatchlings. This is the main cause for the reduction in the nesting process of sea turtles. Not only here, all over India, artificial lighting. Then development and the armoring. Yes, they also reduce the nesting habitats. So what is this armoring? Like the grinds, sea walls, breakers. So they all affect the nesting habitats of turtles. Development and armoring. See, this picture shows how turtles are harvested illegally. So these are poached for food and eggs. This is the most common activity in third world countries and Caribbean islands. Okay. Now, what is making the, so I have mentioned so many threats. Now let us see, so one by one in detail. What is making the sea turtle endangered? Yes. So coastal development. So what is happening in the coastal areas? So they destroy the nesting beaches, increasing pollution in bays, in lagoons, distracting hatchlings with the light, beach vehicle activities. So then net and shrimp trawls, entanglement and drowning. They are used in trade for shell and meat, destroying feeding grounds. Industrial development. This sand walls, they prevent nesting areas. Oil spill may occur due to the industrial developmental activities. So damage to the coral reefs and the seagrass beds, where these turtle species are found commonly. And natural mortality, that is predation as hatchlings, predation as juveniles and adults, and due to adolescent age, so they may die. Yes, already we discussed this. Yes. Yes, I told you lighting is one of the major cause for the reduction in the nesting processes of sea turtles. What can be done? So what are the solutions to decrease this light or illumination in the beach areas? So we need to turn off unnecessary lights. So we should not use decorative lights. So face lights away from the beach, shield the light source, painting, that is a temporary solution only, and replace the exposed light sockets with the recessed, replace the fixtures with the directional fixtures, replace lights on poles, replace bulbs with sodium vapor or bug lights, plant or improve vegetation buffers, use shielded motion lights, apply window tint or blinds, move lights away from windows. This lighting may look simple, but lighting is the major causes for the reduction in the stock of the sea turtles. So we need to take care of this lighting processes on the beach areas. Yes, crows and crabs. So they are major predators when the turtles come to the shore for nesting process. Dogs, foxes, beach driving. See, in some of the beaches, this has become a common practice. So driving and pollution, beach armoring, coastal developmental activities. Yes. How can we protect the turtles and their habitat? How can we protect the nesting grounds? Yes, we can establish reserves and wildlife refuge. Already several governments have declared several turtle nesting grounds as biosphere reserve or sanctuary or parks. Then relocating eggs to the hatcheries. Yes, this is being undertaken even by our forest departments. So even in our state, in several districts, coastal districts, forest department has started establishing hatcheries, turtle hatcheries, and they are collecting eggs from the beaches with the help of volunteers, and they incubate those eggs in the hatcheries. And after getting the hatchlings are hatched in the sea. And this has become a common process now. And patrolling the beaches from the poachers, preventing coastal developmental activities. Then education. So people should be made aware of the need for the conservation of sea turtles. So we should get educated. Then after getting educated, we should educate the public, general public, and all the stakeholders. Yes. Get locals involved, decrease international trade of products, scientific research, more research should be undertaken on these species, protected species, and we should inform others about the need for the conservation of these endangered animals. And one thing is, at global level, if you take, only few countries are able to make rules and regulation and implement those regulations properly. But there are countries that are not able to implement the rules and regulations properly. So due to the shortage of money and manpower. Yes, not all countries have the money or manpower to control poaching on beaches. Violation of poaching may only face a simple fine or maybe disregarded in some countries. These are the major problems. And one more thing is, problems being faced with the enforcing laws is, jurisdiction varies between the governmental agency. Even you take our countries. And so water may, territorial water comes under the state government control, and beyond territorial water, that becomes the control of the central government. Similarly, so water may fall under the Department of Fisheries, and the beach may come under the Department of Forest. And the jurisdiction between the department, governmental agencies, that also create problems in conservation and management of turtles. And turtle farms, this is a good concept. It is being undertaken in some countries to re-establish these turtle populations. But it involves huge investment. So in some areas, local people are not educated enough, and they need turtle meat as a source of protein. Since they require this as a source of protein, so they poach these animals, and it should be avoided. And not all nesting beaches can be protected. Yes. Conservation efforts. Research should be done. So there are organizations to develop interest on conservation and management of these turtles, and existing laws and statutes needs to be implemented properly. Research. So what type of research can be undertaken on these sea turtles? And so number of species is too little. So and normally they are conserved by population or stock wise only. So distribution, abundance, life histories, turtle deaths, disease, and the reasons for their death, reasons for their decline in the status of stock of these animals. So all need to be explored properly. And we need to identify the genetic stocks and sex determination techniques of nesting ecology, effects of lights, beach armoring, and beach re-nourishment. All these things need to be explored, undertaken. Okay. So now, so what are the international initiatives that have been taken for the conservation and management of turtles? When we talk about the conservation and management of marine animals, the first and foremost organizations that comes to our mind is IUCN, that is International Union for the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. This is a first international forum in 1963 itself for the sea turtle research and conservation. Then in 1973, US Endangered Species Act was passed for the conservation of turtles. Then after that, NOAA, National Ocean and Atmospheric Agency, its units like National Marine Fisheries Service and US Fish and Wildlife Service. So they started implementing this Endangered Species Act with respect to marine turtles. You see here, these two agencies like NMFS, NMFS and USFWS. Out of these two, NOAA Fisheries, it has the lead for the conservation and recovery of sea turtles when they are at the sea. At the same time, USFWS, it is responsible for conservation and management of turtles when the turtles are on nesting beaches. Second one is CITES. CITES stand for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This is an international agreement between governments. Its aim is to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants don't threaten the survival of the species. And so for many years, CITES has been among the conservation agreements with the largest membership. You see, so number of countries or states so that have become party to this CITES is 184. Then the third one is Convention on Migratory Species. Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. This is also called Convention on Migratory Species, CMS, or the Bonn Convention. This is an international agreement that aims to conserve migratory species throughout their ranges. And this was signed under the auspices of the United Nations Environment Programme, and it is concerned with the conservation of wildlife and habitats on a global scale. This was signed in 1979 in Bonn, West Germany. That's why this is called a Bonn Convention. This came into force in 1983. So as of September 2020, there are 131 states, member states to this convention. And this CMS, Convention on Migratory Species. So it has several appendices to conserve the endangered animals, and at the same time, it has undertaken several MOUs. So memorandum of understanding with the, for example, MOU among the states or countries that are situated in the Atlantic coast of Africa, and MOU among the countries or states situated so along the Indian Ocean, that is Southeast Asia. Look at this. This CMS stands for Convention on Migratory Species. So this slide shows the MOU concerning conservation measures for marine turtles of the Atlantic coast of Africa. Look at the map. And these are the coastal countries of western coastal countries of Africa. And so, there are 24 signatory states under this MOU. But this is not functional. So no functional secretariat, no website, no delivery of action plan. And so there is no international cooperation with reference to these particular countries. So next, the MOU, this is on the conservation and management of marine turtles and their habitats of the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia. You look at the map, you can understand what are the countries that have become parties or member to this MOU. And this is it has a dynamic secretariat. It means they have one office headquarters, and that is well functioning. And so they have excellent website support, intergovernment successes, intergovernmental cooperation is the slow change within countries. Yes, they could realize the rise in the stock of sea turtle species in this particular area. That is mainly because of this MOU among these countries. There are 33 signatory states. And the next one is Inter-American Convention for the Protection and Conservation of Sea Turtles. Here there are 15 signatory states. This is also having a functional secretariat. It has website support, strong in-country support, strong NGO support. This is shortly called WIDECAST, Wider Caribbean Sea Turtle Conservation Network. Here, NGO partnership with the governments within UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, that is also under Caribbean Environment Program. This is undertaken. So they have got a dynamic support for in-country actions. So many populations in recovery. Yes, turtle status increased after signing this MOU among these 43 Caribbean nations and territories. South Pacific Regional Environment Program, shortly called SPREP, Marine Species Program. Again, like the Indian Ocean or this Caribbean islands, this is also functioning well. And memorandum of agreement between the government of Republic of Philippines and the government of Malaysia on the establishment of Turtle Islands Heritage Protected Area. Yes. So significant threatening process currently impacting multiple marine turtle population include fisheries bycatch in coastal water, open ocean, ingestion of synthetic debris, entanglement in marine debris, excessive harvest of turtles, excessive harvest of eggs, excessive egg loss to the predators, coastal developmental activities which result in habitat loss or degradation of coastal areas. So altered light horizons or nesting places, finally climate change. And in some countries, there are species-specific action plans. For example, in South Pacific regions, loggerhead turtles. This is a candidate for a single species action plan. This is also working well. Then, this American Tortoise Rescue. So this is a voluntary organization that sponsors this World Turtle Day. So today is May 23rd. So today we are celebrating World Turtle Day. This is an annual observance occurring every 23rd. This began in 2000 and it is being sponsored by American Tortoise Rescue. This day was created as a yearly observance to help people celebrate and protect turtles and tortoises and their disappearing habitats around the world, as well as to encourage human actions to help them survive and thrive. And this sort of day is working well. And today you see, so almost all over the world, those who are working on, those who are dealing with this turtle or marine animals, they all talk about these turtles. They all talk about conservation and management of these turtles. This is the success of marking this sort of days. Yes, this is working well. So today we are able to learn a lot about the threats that are being faced by the turtles and what should be done, what is being done, what needs to be done to improve the stock status of these turtles. It means we are creating awareness. This is working well. This is being sponsored by American Tortoise Rescue. And so what is happening in India? So already the senior scientist, Dr. Saravanan, touched a lot on conservation and management of turtles in India. So let me share a few things about this. In India, Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972 lists all species of marine turtles in Schedule 1. There are 5 schedules. Out of these 5 schedules, the Schedule 1, the animals and plants that are protected under Schedule 1, so they only have the highest protection. And if anyone violates or the animals or plants that are under this particular schedule, or if they poach or if they possess the products of these plants and animals, they will be experiencing the harshest punishment. In the fine will also be the heaviest one. Yes. So in India, turtles are protected under this particular Schedule 1 of this Indian Wildlife Protection Act. Under international law, India is a signatory to CITES and CMS. It covers endangered species that need rigorous protection. Under this act, a person is liable to the harshest penalties for violation of the law under this schedule. Species under this schedule are prohibited to be hunted throughout India except under threat to human life or in case of disease that is beyond recovery. Only such cases we can deal with these plants or animals. Otherwise, we should not touch these animals even. And examples for regional initiatives. You see, as in US and all, so there is a Bureau of Protected Species Management, in which there is a sea turtle section, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Florida Marine Research Institute, under which there is a sea turtle standing and salvage network. Likewise, if you take our countries, in almost all the coastal states where this turtle nesting is common, Forest Department is getting engaged in ranching these sea turtles. Yes, even in Tamil Nadu, so Forest Department is playing an active role in ranching these sea turtles. And some of the reports showed that turtle population in these areas increased to some extent. And in addition to these forest departments, research institutes like CMFRI and fisheries colleges situated along the coastal area of our countries, they also get involved in research and conservation of these sea turtles. And you see, this is an interesting one, the SSTCN. It stands for Students Sea Turtle Conservation Network. It is a voluntary group. It comprises students and young adults who have been working in the beaches of Chennai since 1987. So they try to conserve and create awareness about the endangered olive ridley sea turtles. And they conduct several programs. The most important one is Turtle Watch. All these sort of programs help in creating awareness on the conservation and management of turtles. As students, what can we do? Yes. So we can pick up trashes on the beach. So we can make a promise that we buy only recycled plastic products. So, and we don't buy marine and animal products and the souvenirs. And so even we'll be careful about what we eat. And we should volunteer in helping scientists do research on this kind of endangered animals. And so students can become members of animal conservation societies. And so whenever they come across standard animals like this, they can write to the concerned authorities and they can draw the attention of the particular organizations. Yes. So that's all. So thank you one and all for having showed patience. Is there any questions? I'm very happy to answer those questions. When we talk about these turtles, we use a term called aribadas. Aribadas means a mass nesting event of turtles. Mainly this leatherback turtle. Yes, olive ridley turtles. So aribadas. Then very often we get confused with the terms like turtle, tortoise, terrapin. Again, this is based on the language what we use. For example, in American English, turtle is the term that is commonly used to denote this sort of reptile, whether that is land or freshwater or sea. But when it comes to sea, they say sea turtle. When they say turtle means, so it means there is a freshwater turtle or land turtle. But in British English, turtle means only the counterparts that live in sea, marine environment. The species that live in sea, they are called turtles. The one that lives on the land, they are called tortoise. Sorry, yes, tortoise. And the species that live in freshwater or brackish water, they are called terrapins. So the three terms are, in some places they are used as synonyms also, but there are very good differences among all these things. Freshwater turtle, that is terrapin, land, that is tortoise, and marine, that is turtle. That's all.
Yes, it is over to the participants for the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jaikumar. And only one word I would like to supplement. The Aribada word is a Spanish word, meaning the arrival.
It's a Spanish word.
Spanish word.
Aribodas derived that term from Spanish language, Aribodas.
Thank you, sir, for your motive speaks on general aspects of turtles, occurrence and abundance data which pertain to species. And sir has elaborated on the nesting behavior, migratory turtles, briefed notes on natural as well as anthropogenic threats that threatens the survival of turtles, which includes fishing, developmental activities, and natural hazards. He also added the regional initiatives with the view of conservation aspects on Wildlife Protection Act and Tamil Nadu Marine Fishing Regulation Act, which prohibits all kinds of fishing activities in the radius of 5 nautical miles. And sir has given an elaborate talk on problems pertaining to stock status, conservation aspects, international national instruments, conservation efforts, laws, policies, signatories like IUCN, CITES, CMS, and given more emphasis on species-specific plan. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your talk on international and national initiatives taken for the conservation of sea turtles. And now we are moving to the next speaker. I just confirm, Madhu sir, are you in line?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, sir. Just I'll give a formal introduction, sir.
Yeah.
Then you can share the presentation. So our next dignified and distinguished speaker is Dr. V.R. Madhu, Principal Scientist, ICAR, Central Institute of Fishing Technology, Kochi. His topic on responsible fishing operation with special reference to turtle excluder device. Ansar has joined ARS, Agriculture Research Scientist Board, in 2003 and posted at Veraval Research Center, CIFT. He has completed MFSC in ICAR, Central Institute of Fisheries Education, Mumbai, and did his PhD in JNTU, Hyderabad. He is a recipient and holder of POGO SEO SCORE Fellowship in 2011 and had undergone training at Plymouth Marine Laboratory, United Kingdom, for deriving ecological indicators from the satellite data for predicting fish abundance. He is also associated with Space Application Center, Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, that is INCOIS at Hyderabad, for developing potential fishing zones, advisories along Gujarat coast, and also presently working on project for improving the selection properties of trawl systems interested in works to quantify fish behavior in fishing gears, in various fishing gears. Yes, sir. Now the session is over to you.
So thank you, sir. We have been experiencing some network issues today. So I will switch off my video and then start the presentation, start the sharing. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I hope it is visible. This screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Yeah, thank you very much. And respected VC and all other dignitaries, thank you for the opportunity. Like I would be basically telling a few aspects of responsible fishing operations, because that's what we normally do in CRFT. And also this has got specific reference to turtles. Like I will also deal with the turtle exclude devices and the works related to that, like what you've been doing for a few years. Like just a basic introduction. We know of course, we all know the global and Indian scenario. The fishing is very old practice, and then the synthetics, the navigational equipments, and then the high-powered engines. I think these are the three main drivers that you shared us like into a such an industry that what we have now. And then the global production, like what we see. I just brief through, like, I mean, just go through like what has been the production, and then the reasons for some of the trends and the catches like what we have now. This is the latest figures that we have from FAO, the marine capture here. So something around, say, from 96 onwards, it's around 94 million tons. And then, and of course, if you see the total, the capture, in fact, it has been quite increasing, but it's mostly due to the, the aquaculture side that has been improving a lot. So the marine catches have been plateauing for some time now. A lot of reasons for that, and it's clearly seen here from the 1986, from the early 90s, the graph has stagnated, and then the aquaculture contributing much to the total fish production in the world. And also, if you see, there have been global changes also. I mean, speakers before me have already mentioned about the climate change and all those issues, and we see that the upwelling areas. So there is the trend is coming down, and a significant problem here is the effort, the intensification of the global fishing effort. We see that Europe dominates the global fishing effort, and followed by Asia. Trawlers contribute a major fraction of the global fishing effort, and then long lining also contributes quite a large extent because of the spatial extent that it covers. And also we have issues with turtles for this in the long lining operations. And then if you see the fleet size, we can say that in 2018, it is estimated that we have around 1.56 million, and which is a 2.8% increase from 2016, the FAO figures itself. And out of this 4.56, Asia has almost 3.5 million tons, and Africa around 20. And the motorized vessels, they contribute around 63% of the fleet, and Asia has the 75%, almost 75% of the motorized fleets globally. And coming to the Indian scenario of the latest, the data what we have, we see significant increase in the mechanization of the vessels, which has implications with regard to effort. And similarly, with regard to the effort itself, we have increasing size of the gears. Here, just this was the this is from the survey that CRFT had conducted in 2016, where we see that many of the states, the trawl head rope has significantly increased. Let's say from many of the states, of course, have around 30 to 40 meters, but then it's a significant increase in many of the states. This definitely means that the fishing effort, both in terms of engine power and also the the size of vessels have been increasing. And this is the engine power. Again, this is like 2016 data, like we have around 400, but I think it has crossed 500 now. So some of these basic concepts related to the sustainability. So, and of course, we have a lot of indicators to determine it, like it could be the CPUE, fishing imbalance, mean trophic levels, and a slew of them, in fact, and all of them have been or are derived from the quantity of catches, either fishery related or fishery independent surveys. And then energy use is a very important concept that is coming up. And most of you have, in fact, seen this graph. And in fact, this is the study conducted by Poli, Daniel Poli. And what they have found is that the mean trophic level of the catches have been continuously decreasing over these years. This has implications because we tend to catch species which are higher in the trophic level. And those are the species which have, the reproductive potential is good, but then we catch a lot of them, and then the recruitment is not happening what it should have been. So the final trend would be that the whatever fishes we catch would restrict to sardines, and even in extreme cases of like we would have to eat plankton. Maybe it not be in the near future, but then that's where the trend goes on. And that was the global thing, and now we see the Indian waters also. We see the fishing, the mean trophic levels have been decreasing. This is a paper from CMFRI itself by Vivekanandan et al. We see that the mean trophic level has been decreasing over these years. That was a paper which came in 2010 or so. So till 2000s, like the trophic level have been decreasing. And when we talk about turtles, definitely much of these has ramifications to this, because this normally comes as a bycatch in many of our fishing systems. And then if we broadly classify the catch, so that could be the target and the bycatch, and then you have the discards and the retained catch, or the incidental catch, where it has got some value. So the turtles come something like in the discards, because that's where most of them are discarded. Some of these snapshots from different fishing operations. And then where we stand in terms of bycatch. So that is a recent estimate, FAO estimates by Rhoda et al. So that's like 9.1 million tons, and 46%, 4.2 million tons is constituted by the trawlers. And all of these fisheries worldwide, and also based on fishery-based estimations. The overall discard rate, if you calculate it, something like a 10.8 million tons. So if we catch around 90, so 10% of that is discards. So such huge levels of discards. And gillnet fisheries also, which we call it as very responsible, they also contribute significantly, mostly from the bottom set gillnets. Longline fisheries also, around 2.3, and high discard volumes for Persinas, around 1 million tons, although the discard rates are low, it's around 4%. And with regard, I think this was the first time when any report by FAO had considered ETP species also, and then a very important observation is that almost 1 million seabirds are being caught as incidentally in the fishing operations, and 8.5 million sea turtles. This is the global figures, and then 0.23 million sea snakes, and 0.65 marine mammals, and 10 million sharks. So that is the recent estimates on a global scale we have. And Indian scenario, not much work on the ETP species, but then we lack in real estimations of this ETP species, but then it's a pressing need for that. And then it's a new project that's been taken up by CMFRI, and in association, I think the next talk would be that from MPEDA, where the reasons for that, the banning of the wild caught shrimps of Indian waters. So these have all got ramifications for that. And then the issues like how do we, in fact, control this bycatch or reduce the bycatch. And then this is the low value bycatch, the latest figures from the Indian waters by Dinesh Babu et al., SEMOFARE. So they say that from 2008 to 2011, the low value bycatch has increased from 14% to 25%. So low value bycatch is basically the incidental catches that is brought to the shore because it has got a value for fish meal or other activities. So all these figures are fishery dependent. In fact, only a few studies are based on independent fishery independent data and mostly conducted by CIFT in their own vessels. So same thing like if you see the low value bycatch increasing from 14% to 25% in 2011. So coming to our talk on TETs, because that's basically a technical measure. So what in broad is a technical measure are a broad set of rules that govern when, how and where the fisherman may fish. And also this also includes minimum landing sizes, minimum conservation sizes, like we have the MLS coming in now. Then specifications for the design and use of gears. Then minimum mesh sizes for the nets, like it could be the size and shape also of the nets, square mesh, for example. Then requirement of selective gears, like it could be installed with a TED or installed with a grid, a bycatch detection device or anything of that sort. So all this comes into the broad classification of technical measures or regulations. So we have the closed areas and seasons. And limiting the bycatch, in fact, bycatch, quota regulations and all. And all these are basically to reduce the impact on the ecosystem and the ecosystem basically. So if you see like what is an ideal fishing gear, the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries, which is often called as the Bible for responsible fishing operations, says that it should be the fishing gear should be specific to the target species and sizes, and it should have very negligible direct or indirect impact on non-target species, sizes, and habitats. So this is very important. Both includes non-target species, its sizes, and also habitats. And it should, the ideal gear, if you operate, should be very effective, and should give or should catch only the target species, and virtually it should not catch any of these non-targeted species. And also the cost of the production, in fact, the cost of fishing should also be very low. And also with regard to the catch quality. So all this, in fact, that's called an ideal fishing gear, but then there's a gear that never exists, because in a tropical fishery particularly, it's very, very difficult to have something of an ideal gear. So it's basically an optimization of our wants and then what we get out of it. I think I'll skip this. Basically, we are more moving into a balanced fishery of all trophic levels. We see that this is an unbalanced fishery. So I was really mentioning about the trophic levels. So this is a Lindemann pyramid, and we often catch in this region of it, like all the high value species are here. The mean trophic level is quite high. And then it could be in the lower stretches also, there are specific fisheries like the sardines and all, where most of the catches are from the lower side. So what we in fact, what research is moving on is towards a balanced fishery where the gear catches species of all types at all trophic levels. So there's a lot of thinking going on regarding what could be an ideal fishing gear. One aspect I often highlight here is in case of other ecosystem models, like what we see, it's mostly the third, in the second level, where most of the consumption happens, and mostly, in fact, the first trophic level, where most of the people, in fact, eat pulses, cereals, and everything, fruits, and maybe in the second level where the consumption happens. But then if you see the case of the food chain in fisheries, so we have even the fifth trophic level. So this is basically where the fishing happens. So that's the reason why it tends to collapse very fast. And think most of you are aware of it. This is the ecosystem effect index for different fishing gears. So the higher the index, ecosystem index, the better the gear. So most of these which are highlighted in red have a very low ecosystem effect index, meaning that they are not very good for the ecosystem, like the demersal trawls, beam trawls, shrimp trawls, then the trammel nets, which have very low selection properties. I think I'll skip through this. And also, as I was mentioning, like the gill nets, negative impacts, it's quite good in terms of selectivity, because much of the catch that is caught is of a uniform size, and also size classes are very important here. But then we have some negative impacts, which include the ghost fishing, bycatch of birds, seabirds, turtles, and marine mammals. And I think the mitigation efforts towards that we will come on a later stage. And then trammel nets, the selection properties I mentioned earlier is quite low when compared to the gill nets. The problems regarding the traditional gill nets also exist with regard to the ghost fishing and everything, but energy efficiency is good, and also the catch rate, if you calculate, it's also good. Traps and ports don't have much of ATP species, and because the selection properties are good, but then we have the issues with regard to the ghost fishing. And coming to the trawls, which contribute a significant portion, almost 45% of the bycatch issues globally. In fact, pelagic trawls are much better off than bottom trawls. But even though, in terms of sea turtles, if you consider, the mortality is often an issue here. A lot of turtles also can come in the path. And then persines, not much of an issue in case of turtles, but cetaceans are often a problem, the other ATP species, because they often come to depredate on these catches and then get caught incidentally also. And then the gear-based technical inventions, I mentioned earlier regarding the technical interventions. It could be anything, in fact, starting from the closed seasons, closed, size regulations and everything. But then CFD have been dealing with the gear-based technical interventions, and mostly these interventions are carried out in the trawling sector. And then since we know that most of our catches come from trawlers, there has definitely been a shift in the philosophy, most of the works that we have started with regard to responsible fishing gear started in the 80s, where there was a significant shift in developing more responsible gears rather than increasing the catches. So we have developed a lot of designs which include the energy saving features. And also the selectivity estimates have been carried out for many species, and then a lot of BRDs were tested. And square mesh cordons, both panels and even the entire cordon, entire cordon also have been tried a lot. And then I think some designs which could have a possible impact on turtles. This is a cutaway top belly trawl where there is a in fact, the head rope, what we see, some of the designs have been tried abroad also, where the upper portion is a bit, towards the back. So turtles, in fact, fishes are found to swim away. And then definitely, if that is the case, turtles also can, we have not tried in the East Coast. It's so basically on the West Coast, but then there is a possibility that this could, in fact, benefit some of the designs of trawls, thereby in which the turtle encounter can be reduced. And also there's a concurrent reduction in the surface area, and also in terms of fuel savings in this design. And there is another design called the short body shrimp trawl. There's a reduced vertical height, meaning that the fishes would reduce in number that gets encountered, that gets trapped in the trawl, so it could be beneficial for turtles also. And then coming to the bycatch reduction devices, then we have tested a lot of devices in Indian waters. Then the classification is something like soft BRDs, hard BRDs, combination BRDs. basically depending on the material in which they are fabricated. Soft BRDs don't have any hard materials like steel. Then hard BRDs have maybe stainless steel or hard plastic or anything. And then combination BRDs are something that have both of them for the fabrication. And one of the most important BRD, and then which is widely being used in Indian waters, is the Squamish cordon, which is a soft BRD, and we have found encouraging results. And many of the states, in fact, have adopted this design. But then, specifically related to turtles, this has nothing to do with turtles. Basically, to improve the selection properties and reduce bycatch of non-targeted juvenile fishes, specifically. This is another hard BRD, rigid grid sorting devices. Almost the same working principle of TEDs, but then the size, grid size or grid spacing is much less when compared to the TED, CFD TED, which I will be mentioning. This is a fisheye BRD, again for escapement of fishes. And then this is a JFE SSD, juvenile fish excluder shrimp sorting device. And then this has got an opening where we have two cordons. One is for shrimp and one is for fish. And then we are trying to modify this TED so that it could be something like an integrated BRD, where the escapement of fish, the turtles also can happen with this device. And this in a design phase. Let's keep this. And then overall results from the field trials, we see that the shrimp loss and the bycatch exclusion, if you consider both, in fact, fisheye BRD is found to be a better option. Why I have specifically shown this slide is that this part, the shrimp loss part, and the bycatch exclusion has got ramifications, because this one portion or this one metric would be something that would lead to a successful adoption of a BRD. So the TED in case, like I'll come up. So this is basically the TED. I think most of you know the operation of it. So it's basically obstructs the movement of a turtle, and then you have a flap here, and then where turtles can go up. And there have been a lot of designs that have been tried world over, and many of these factors, in fact, the angle of the inclination of the grid, and then the size of the flap, the mesh size, and then accelerated funnels. All these are the accelerated funnels, so that fish or turtles are forced to reach the grid. So all these are factors which affect the survival or the escapement of the turtle once it is entering the trawl net. And we see here that after a lot of studies, we see that the shrimp loss from the CFD TED was 0.5 to 1% only. Where in fact, we have tried, I think I'm coming to that, we have tried a lot of other grids also in the Indian waters where the shrimp loss was found to be quite high. And that was one of the reasons why the fishermen had, in fact, had a very bad opinion about these TEDs, stating that there is a lot of escapement of the targeted species happening. So turtle incidents in fishing gears. So this was from one of the documents that we have submitted to NOAA, an overall thing like what we have, and then the main gears like the gillnets, trawls, seines, and long lines are the commercial gears where the turtle incidence is happening in Indian waters. And then rightly mentioned, like not many recent studies conducted on a pan-India scale. So CMFRA study during 1997 to 98, so it says that 13% of incidental catch, and gillnets 60%, the rest is by other gears. So these are the turtle incidences in fishing gears. About 90% of the incidence is from the west coast, the coast of Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu contributing. And of course, we know the Orissa is the most important state in terms of the turtle aggregation. And then also we have indicated there is no turtle incidence in estuaries at back nets. Maybe very occasional, but then it's not the only. And then a brief of like what we have tried in Indian waters. So we have tried this super shooter TED. let's say 1 meter into 8.5, 850 mm sized with 90 mm grid spacing. So if you specifically see this 90 mm grid spacing, that's very small. In fact, what CFT has developed is a 142 mm grid spacing. That means that most of these fish, bigger fishes, get into the cordon. But then if a size, so this is very critical in sense, the space between the grids. So the lesser the space, the more the escapement opportunity for for the turtles and its juveniles, but then the catch loss is quite high. So it's a fine balance. And then CFT has developed that taking into account the incidence of turtles, its escapement, and the catch loss. But then, yeah, of course, you see that there's a 30% fish loss happening in this shooter TED. And then the studies were carried out with this super shooter in Andhra and then Orissa coast, and then definitely many of them had a very high escapement rate, something like around 30%, which was unacceptable for the fishers. So what we have done is we have put a collection bag towards in the opening of the TED, so that we can quantify the fish coming out of it. So that's how the shrimp and fish loss is quantified. And based on that, there was an expert scientific panel also. I think this will be discussed in a later talk. So CMFRA, CFT, FDC, FSI, CIFNET, Wildlife Institute, and then all of these were members. And then based on these recommendations of this committee, the CFT TED was developed. This is basically the TED which very recently we have been using on. Then we all know there was an issue with regard to the export of wild caught shrimp from India, and we had to modify this. So this is the basic TED design that we had. This is a 45-degree angle, and then this is the size. Then the exit hole, 75 into 80 centimeters, and two plastic floats were attached on top. And then this is the exit hop flap, and this is this one, what you find is a accelerator funnel. So as I was mentioning, the escapement rate was quite low for shrimps and fish. So we see around, say, only 1% of shrimps were lost, and maybe around 3% of non-shrimp resources, fishes. And then the catches of finfish vary seasonally and temporally, and that's like depending on the season and the spatial location where we're in. And out of these 51 hauls that we have carried out, we have seen that 100% of escapement of olive ridleys, that is total of 21, had happened when we have used this this TED. And this is basically the visuals, the photographs from the different trials. We see this is the flap, and then we keep an opening here so that whatever fish and turtles. This is a small mesh size opening, cordon bag. So this is a regular cordon, and then this is a cordon attached to the flap. So we see that there are turtles coming out, and then among that 21 studies, we found 100% escapement of turtles. And with regard to the, so I think most of you are aware of the ban that is still existing for the export of wild caught shrimp. There are many reasons to it, and then CFT is a member. CFT is a technical consultant for that, and then along with association with EMPEDA, we are trying to modify the CFT TED based on the NOAA protocols. So I'm just mentioning like what is the protocol for testing. So they do it underwater. So there is a 2-class loggerheads. Turtles are being used for this. And they keep it for 30-day preconditioning. This is for regaining the vigor and the swimming stamina. And then buoyancy control for the turtles. And then what they do with the control TED is on a particular day, both the control and the test TED are tested. So a TED with performance, say for example, Super Shooter in case of US, they operate it, and the controls for different annual variation turtle behavior, controls for annual and monthly variations, all this, in fact, is change in temperature, all these are taken into account. And then what they do is they release 24 turtles through the mouth of the quadrant, and then see that a 5-minute exposure is given for each of these turtles, and it should come out in 5 minutes. And based on the results of the control TED, a decision rule is derived. So based on this decision rules, it predetermine the risk of approving. So they do it for a candidate TED. Say for example, a modified CFT TED. So divers videotape the TED underwater, and TED designers review it, and then modifications are made as necessary. And then again, these are tested. So the rejection acceptance is based on the 25 turtles that are released. And of course, this has limitations in sense that the time is not much. In fact, since it is in a controlled environment, test environment, and enforced test may be biased and can cause errors, and also like we have issues with regard to the wild and domesticated turtles. So that's like there's how it is being tested, like how it is being tested, and a new design is developed in case of NOAA. This is based on NOAA protocols. And modification of CFT TED, in fact, I was mentioning it was 142 like what we have been doing for these years. And then the modification is to reduce the grid spacing to maybe 3 inches or so. And we have developed 2 designs based on their recommendations. One is specifically for large trawlers and small trawlers, because we have both the type of trawlers operating in Indian waters. And then I was mentioning about the accelerator funnel. Based on the recommendations, this had to be removed, the accelerator funnel, because of the opinion of NOAA that it could restrict the movement of turtles. And there were some changes in the mesh size of the webbing also. And then the flap size had to be a bit increased. And then these trials using the new CFT TED, 2 TEDs are scheduled next month in US. And one of our senior scientists and then a person from MPEDA, they are visiting NOAA for the tests. And even though, like if you see, it should require a lot of extensive trials, and even if the design is approved and this favors the control TED, if it is found suitable, but then even then we require extensive field trials in the Indian waters. So it's a visual like the person from NOAA visiting and inspecting our TED in CFT. And that was in fact like what's happening as of now in case of the TED in Indian waters. And then in addition to that, because that's a technical measure, and I've told a lot of other technical measures also. This could be the spatial distribution of turtles, like this is happening in US, where they have correlated the movement of turtles with the environmental parameters. So it could be something like sort of a turtle watch, where I think it's a lot of a research group is Polovina and all. They have developed or they have perfected the technology of finding out the potential areas where the turtles move, so that those locations, specifically those locations, can be cordoned off, or advisories can be given that no fishing is allowed in that region. This is particularly for the long lining operations and all. And also we see there that it's new research is coming up that there's a lot of effect of color on turtle behavior and also the auditory responses. So here you see the turtles. Hearing capabilities are different for different species. So this could all be potential steps which we could take to reduce the incidence of turtles in the fishing gears. So basically to avoid this from coming in, like in case of pingers, like what we do for the cetaceans. So it could be similar, something like that, of that sort. And also a lot of research now coming on with regard to the LED illumination and also ultraviolet lights. So we see that there is a specific, with regard to LED light, there's a significant reduction in the LED light, in the turtle catches, and no significant, or rather the catches of the target species have increased, and the value also increased when using the LED nets. it's a good sign because, in fact, there was one study which was carried out in Pakistan waters also with regard to sharks. Then it could be similarly. We could also take up these studies with regard to light, which is a very important field. Also, we have conducted some studies using the old version of TED in Mandapam region. So we see that this is TED. So the CPUE, like if you're using TED, not much of difference. And then the total catch, the kg per hour, but TED was decreasing because it seems like there is some sort of escapement happening. And the discards also see in case of TED, they are much more. So this is in 2 months, basically February and October. In both the cases, the discards are quite high. And coming to the specific pointers, so light basically is increasingly known to be very effective. Known to be very effective in reducing the turtle catches. And also, like we have many of these studies. In fact, CFD also has carried out studies with regard to circle hooks in the Lakshadweep waters, but there were green turtles. But then we see that the deep hooking is avoided when circle hooks are used. So there's a possibility of circle hooks, but then, of course, it depends on how much of time it remains underwater. The removal of circle hooks are easy, but then if it is drawn, then it could be quite difficult to bring them back to life. And then I was mentioning about the remote sensing applications. This could, in fact, INCOIS can taken up like species-specific advisories in case of region-specific and species-specific advisories for avoiding turtle incidents. And then in case of trawls, grids are found to be effective, but then there is a concurrent loss of the targeted catches happening. And also a very important aspect is the timing of the total trawling operations. Like normally the commercial fishers go for 3 hours, and then if a turtle comes in the early stages of the fishing, then it's very, very difficult to save them. And also the grid performance is based on, or it could be highly influential and depends on the catches in the fishing ground. Like if you have something like a big fish or a big ray coming in, then it could definitely affect the outcome of the grid. And then the grid shape and size and the spacing, these are also very important in case of trawls. And then measures to bring them back. I think many of our fishers, should be trained in case of like if a turtle comes on board, then how to bring it back to life. So much of this training can be given to them. And as far as the technical measures is concerned, I think area closure is the best option because the incidents or the turtle and gear incidents doesn't happen, and the bycatch mortality, what is happening, could not be an issue. So whatever we have in Orissa, like the seasonal catches, that could be the best option. And then also we need more studies on the migratory routes and life history characteristics of many of these turtles. But then also a very large aspect of this is social aspects, like how large a change is possible. In fact, the change in sense like we have a particular design of a gear or a TED or anything. So how much change is possible? How much would a fisherman allow it to change? So this is basically intricately connected to the economic benefits, what they derive out of it. And then many of these devices, like say case of TEDs itself, much of these, the gears can be manipulated, in fact, so that illegally, in fact. So the selection properties gets reduced. And then also we need to take steps to compensate for the potential catch losses. So definitely there's a loss happening when a bycatch reduction device is installed in a fishing gear. So we need to devise measures to compensate for these potential losses. It could be something like we correlate it with subsidies if it is there. Say if a person using a responsible fishing gear, a TED or something, so he gets a subsidy or some benefit from the government. So it has to be related in sense. So and also the other stock conditions happening in the ground. And then very important aspect is the close association with the fishermen community, because they are the people who ultimately use this any gear and thread in particular. And then also we require a strict monitoring, control, and surveillance, because much of this, like which I told earlier, like much of this is related to the economic benefits, because as and when or till when the bycatch or the incidental catch has a value, implementing this could be quite a big effort. So I think that's it with regard to TETs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation and enlightening us with efforts, fleets, increased fishing efforts with relevance to fishing gear size, basic concepts related to indicators of fisheries sustainability, fishing down the food webs, and data on catch details pertaining to global fisheries and Indian scenario on discards, bycatch, and targeted catch, technical measures and regulations, turtle incidences in fishing gears, expert scientific panel, testing protocol, modification of SIFTED, emerging research and the way forward with respect to gear-based technical measures. Thank you, sir. And now the session is open for the discussion.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, as you told about the soft and hard bycatch reduction devices, my question was, are the hard bycatch reduction devices containing metals and wires in any way harmful to the to the juvenile turtles?
Yeah, it's a good question. In fact, we have not found that to be very harmful to the juvenile turtles. And one thing, like this is basically not based on our research, but then we have not encountered much of juvenile turtles in our waters. It's whatever encounters we had was basically the juvenile, I mean the adult ones, adult olive ridleys. But juveniles, I think the NOAA has conducted some work, but then what they say is that it's the grid spacing that affects much more. In fact, what happens is like the juvenile turtles could get entangled in this grid spacing. So what they, I think they have conducted a lot of a series of experiments. I think what they say is around 121 or so in the recent years. And what they find is that the optimum is something like 100 mm, that is 3-inch grid spacing. So in that, they find unless you operate in the areas where juveniles are very much present, the very young ones, I think it's not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So, my question is what are the drawbacks of using turtle excluding device? Like, for it is specific for any species, or any environmental impact is there for using turtle excluding devices?
In fact, we use it for environmental benefits. In fact, if you are specifically asking for turtles, but then as I was mentioning in my talk, the problem with this is there is always an incidental escapement happening of the non-target. I mean the targeted catches. So the more you increase the grid size, the more the escapement. So in fact, basically it depends on like what are our priorities. So if our priority is for the escapement of turtles, then it's better that we decrease the grid spacing so that most of these turtles which come in the path get escaped. And also there are technical, in addition to this grid spacing, there are other factors also, like I was mentioning about the grid, like the accelerated funnels, which are, in fact, it's a bit of a cutting, how to cut it, and then how it behaves underwater and all. So when there are chances that the accidental funnel can trap these turtles. So so it's a fine balance basically between economics and the sustainability of resources. But then also the in quotations, like it's based on what are we trying to protect. So if your interest is basically to improve profits, then there are a lot of other things that come into picture. But then of course, if your intention is to save turtles, then BRD is quite a good option, because there are no other. In fact, there are in other gears, like there are other different ways to reduce the impact. But in trawls, I think BRD is the best option. And also, I was mentioning the other technical measures, which include the closure of areas and all. So that is another option. So, but basically, I mean, the first option is like what we're trying to protect.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I'm Sudan from TNJFU, and I have my own personal question, like how possibly or how best we can provide this SIFT TED, turtle excluder device, for installations among the fishing communities in their nets, or through any program. How best we can give?
Yeah, yeah, good question. In fact, I think there was a maybe around 4 years back, there was a court ruling, and then there was some initiative from the Department of Fisheries to distribute these TEDs to among the fishermen. But then I think CFT was involved in that, the technical guidance part of it. And then, but as of now, we cannot use based on. I mean, if it is for the turtle exclusion, definitely. But then, if it is related to the export, then I think we have to use the new design that is coming up, maybe in 1 or 2 months after the trials. Then regarding your question of how it can be given to the fishers, I think the best option would be through the societies. Societies, in fact, and we are finding a lot of new research coming in where the co-management aspects are found to have very encouraging results in conservation. So it could be through the cooperatives, and then if there is the group coming together for conservation, I think that is one option. And another one I mentioned in my talk regarding connecting it with the benefits like what they get from the government. So if they use TEDs, they get a benefit, or otherwise it could be some they don't get it, and also some other penalizing might not be a good option. But then it be something like they won't get benefited, or something like the societies which use a TED would get a better exposure to the international market, or something like that. I mean, that's what I think would be a good option. But it should always be connected to a benefit part of it. And also maybe even governments can think of say implementing an award for these people, or then say we have the smart gear awards. I think it is it's opened up again, where the innovations of fishers are also encouraged. So in fact, many of these innovations come from the fishermen itself. So in case of Nova TEDs, we see there a lot of industry involvement in developing TEDs. So they develop TEDs which are most effective and with the least escapement of target species. So in fact, industry collaboration and then testing in their own trawls, all this could in fact benefit the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I have my concern is like since TED we all it's all like it's for the betterment of turtle, and what if we could change some of the structure of TED, can it help for the escapement for the escaping of mammals like dugongs, and since in trawlnet we used to swipe most of the fishes that come along the way. Can TED help escape some of our mammals, marine mammals?
Yeah, in fact, the marine mammals is not much of a problem because TEDS is specifically for trawls, which is, the active fishing gears, which are towed underwater. So TEDS are specifically for that. And in case of mammals, I think it's not much of an issue in trawls because they swim out of it. But the swimming speed is much more when compared to a shrimp trawling speed of say 2.5 knots or 2.3 knots. So they move out. I mean, it's very fast. And then in fact, there's a negative thing also, and when I go on board, I found the dolphins and all they station somewhere near the cod end because there's an aggregation of catch in the cod end region of the trawl, and then they bite off this cod end and then take away the catch. So there's another part of it. But your question with regard to TEDS, modification of TED for the exclusion of mammals, I think it's not much of importance in trawls. But then equally important is like we find a lot of problem with gillnets and then persines, where CFT has conducted studies to avoid these incidents of mammals using pingers. So these are basic. I think you must be knowing what are pingers are. These are like they generate sound waves which deter these mammals from eating away. So the studies, there was a PhD student who was carrying out this work. He was conducting works in Cochin region, where he has found that pingers are very effective in case of persines and gillnets. So, but then there's one issue with the mammals. The problem is that they get we fix a range which is found to be very sensitive to them. So that's the reason why they move away from the region. But then if you use it for say 1 or 2 months, they get habituated to that sound. So that is one problem that we have found. And then what we are trying is to develop pingers which has the option to change the frequency occasionally. So that is one option and even like I don't think there is much of issue with regard to mammals in trawls. But then if that is the case, like we could attach such pingers to the cod ends also, for them to get deterred. I think I hope you. I think is it fine? I mean, because like in trawls, mammals are not much of an issue. So that's I think would be the specific answer to your question.
Oh yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the informative session and clarifications with regard to the questions raised by the participants.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. If no more question, we will wind up the session, like technical session, the first part, and we will break for the lunch, and we will join back for the technical session 2 by Mr. S. Ashok Kumar, Deputy Director, MPDA, by 2 o'clock. Yes, sir. I also request the participants to join back by 1:50, just 10 minutes before the session.